Hey, welcome back to the channel. As you can see today, we're going to be talking about a Stockman. Maybe you can tell from the knives in front of you, or maybe you just read the introduction and you figured it out. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. Uh, Throughout the year, I've been talking about different patterns. Today, we're going to take a look at the Stockman. We're going to look at the history of the Stockman. We're going to look at some of the variations of a Stockman. Talk a little bit about what is and what isn't a Stockman. And I think, I don't know, for me, as I did the research on this, I found out some surprising things that surprised me. And I think maybe you may find this pretty interesting also, and it may surprise you too. So if you think you'd be interested in that, finding out all about what a Stockman is, go ahead and check out the video.
Throw them away, and I was like, wait. She goes, what? I said, give me those ketchups.
You wanted them condiments?
Yes. She didn't understand. I mean, we barely know each other. She didn't.
You stole some woman's ketchup?
No, they were my ketchup. But they were extra ketchup that I didn't use. And I wanted to keep them.
Why were you asking her?
Because she took my tray.
Oh.
And my ketchup was on the tray. And I was like, wait a minute. I need that ketchup before you throw away my stuff. Because I keep things like that. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, condiments. She goes, why? I said, because I like to keep them. They're mine. And then I told her how you threw away my bag of condiments at home one time, and I got really mad.
And what'd she say?
She said, you ain't right.
All right, welcome back to the fortified castle. Hi to all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, ciao, and konnichiwa to my foreign viewers. And today we're going to be talking about the Stockman pattern right here. There's a few things that are kind of confusing to some folks. We'll cover that, but we're going to cover the whole pattern. We're going to cover the history. We're going to cover the nuances of the pattern, some of the idiosyncrasies of it, and I think you're going to find it a surprising video and also some good information in it. So I guess the best place to start is on a definition of what a Stockman pattern is. So Bernard Levin, a researcher, author, and a professor, is probably one of the leading authorities on vintage cutlery in the United States. So we're going to use his definition. And Levin says that the premium stock knife was called that because that's what it was. It was a finely built knife that had quality materials in it. And that's why it was called a premium Stockman. And if you open this knife here, a lot of them actually said it. And so you see the premium stock knife right there. And it had 3 blades. 2 of them were opposing. And Bernard Levin says that the main blade was always a clip point, always. I take exception to that, and I'll show you guys why I take exception to that in a little bit. The other blade was a spay blade. This is really the key to the Stockman right here, is the spay blade, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the third blade was any combination of a sheep's foot. You probably see this most commonly, but also they had they could have a pin blade, and they can also have a punch blade, leather punch, or awl. And I've also seen Stockmans with a skin and blade on them. So any number of different blades on them. This knife here is about 3 3/4 inches. But when Stockmans came out, they were large. This is 4 7/8 right here, and a lot of the original ones that came out were large, and they kind of ranged in this range right here that you see, with the bottom being 3.5 inches. So this is my case Model 18 medium Stockman, and this was kind of the bottom range for the premium stock knife. So looking at these, we have large, we have medium Stockmans, and at the very bottom here, kind of out of your sight, is what's called a junior Stockman. These were 3.5 inches to about 3.25 inches. And then we also see knives like this. This is a Model 33, and it's a mini Stockman. So this is only 2 3/4 inches right here. But here's another one. It's a German Stockman, also 2 3/4 inches. So you don't really see these in antiquity. So pre 1940, you don't see any of these minis. And the history of these knives, originally they were quite large, like you see here, and then they got smaller. And in 1910, that's when this junior Stockman comes out. And I'm showing you a couple of pictures right now. The first one, this is out of a Boker catalog from 1906. It shows you printed right above premium stock knife. And then the second one shows you the junior premium Stockman. And that's what these things were known as. So really the defining feature for a premium stock knife is the spade blade. So this spade blade was used by Stockman and others as well. It was used as farmers. Farmers used it too, but they were always on these stock knives, and so that's really the defining feature. And there were always serpentine, and so that kind of answers some questions right up front. What if I have a 3-bladed serpentine knife and it has a pin blade on it? Well, if it has a spade blade, it's a Stockman. And so this one has a spade blade. So the penknife, punches, sheep's foot are all within the variation of the knife. Also, the second question, what if I had a 3-blade knife and it doesn't have those blades? So this has a clip secondary blade and a coping blade for the third blade. So this is a Model 21 Camillus, and these are not Stockmans. So I believe Camillus marketed this as a carpenter's knife, and back at the turn of the century, you see advertisements for knives like this that were carpenter knives or electrician knives, but they weren't Stockmans. So a Stockman, has a spade blade. Here's the toughie right here. This is an equal end Imperial. This knife dates to probably 1925 or 27, and you can see the pin blade on it. And then when you look at the other blade, it's a spade blade. And so, is this a equal end Stockman? And the answer to that is no, and I'll show you why. So contemporary with the Stockman was a cattle knife. Cattle knives are equal end. They're large, bulky knives, 3 5/8 to 3 3/4. Usually, you could tell the difference because they have a spear point blade. So 90% of cattle knives have a spear point blade. So this is kind of unusual with a clip. But they also had the same blades as the Stockman otherwise. So they would have this one has a leather punch, but it also has a spay blade. You see that right there. And so these knives were very much like the premium Stockman, and so they're easily confused between a Stockman, but they're not. They're heavier duty knives in the build quality of them. There was a little more finesse in the Stockman, and that's why this knife right here is just a small cattle knife. And Levin says cattle knives were as small as 3 3/8 inches. Usually they were big like this, though, big knives. So that created some confusion back in the day also. So Levin says these knives came out in 1890, around 1890. I'm showing you right now a picture of a A.J. Jordan catalog. A.J. Jordan produced knives, but he's an American that produced knives, but he imported them from Sheffield. And so you can see up there, this is an 1890 catalog, and you can see the premium Stockman listed there. But as you look through these listings I'm showing you, some of them for the premium stock knife list it both as a cattle knife and a stock knife. So usually, like in the intro on it, intro description, it says premium stock knife, and then it'll say it's a cattle knife, and that kind of makes sense if you think about it, because the stockman did work cattle, and so initially these knives were kind of interchangeable. But you also see in 1890 that you have these cattle knives clearly listed separate. And I think by the 1900s, they were completely separate. There's no more confusion. When they talk about a premium stock knife, they're not saying it's a cattle knife, and vice versa. They're not saying these are stock knives when it's a cattle knife. They were just diverged. They completely split. But early on, some of the same language was used to describe both of these knives. A lot of the different patterns that you see associated with the a stockman are actually variations of the cattle knife. So the cattle knife could vary quite a bit, and you'll see them like with humpback designs, Eureka designs, equal end designs, small designs like this. Just a bunch of different designs, but those are cattle knives. And the reason it kind of confuses us is we're looking at them and they have the Stockman blades on them. And so you can tell because they're all larger. And when you go back, you really don't see any examples of a premium Stockman that is not a serpentine pattern. And so the variations you do see, again, come from cattle knives. I wanted to show you this knife right here. This is an Excelsior knife. It is a premium stock knife. But when you look at the main blade, you see that it's a spear point blade. Long spear point blade. These are very common in the 1800s, those long spear points. And it also has a spay blade right there. And then, very unusually, it has a skinning blade. These skinning blades were common in the 1800s. A lot of British knives have them. You can find them on some American knives in the early 1900s. I think Winchester had a knife with one of these on it. And also I've seen case knives with these skin and blades on them, but they're not all that common. But the point is, this is a very early Stockman, early 1900s, uh, maybe even in the 1880s. I think it dates to around the 1890s. But you could see how the knives were evolving, and fairly quickly, when you look at catalogs, here's one for 1824. I'm showing you now, and you can see all the Stockman knives have clip blades on them. That's by 1824. But even if you look at if you look at these case knives up right now, uh, they have, that's 1904, a catalog from I'm sorry, yeah, 1904, and they all have clip blades on them. So very early, they standardized the blades on these premium Stockmans. This one has a leather punch on it. So before I close this out, I think the other thing I wanted to talk about, a lot of people that review these knives, like myself, will comment about the three blades and how nice the three blades are on the knife. You can have a user blade, you can have another blade as a backup, and then you have a blade that you don't use at all, and they just keep them razor sharp, for when they need a razor sharp blade. So that's kind of the refrain that you hear, and why people like Stockman knives. And certainly that may be a case, but this pattern is probably the second most popular pattern in the world, the Barlow being the number one. But the Barlow came out in 1667. So the Barlow was around 250 years before these Stockmans ever came about. Now, without a doubt, they're very popular, but I'm not so sure it's because of the blades. So this is a whittler. It's three blades. It's a fairly large whittler. If you look at it, it's the same size as my medium Stockman. Here's another whittler. Same thing. It's fairly robustly built. And this probably was a carpenter's knife. You can see it had a coping blade on it. But again, it's the same size as my medium Stockman. You have knives like this. This knife is a four-bladed pen knife, and it is the same size as the junior Stockman. You also had knives like these in the 1800s. Up until the 1920s, these had 9 to 11 blades on them. You had utility knives with 4 blades on them. The point of all of this is that there was no shortage of knives that had more than 2 blades. And so I think really the beauty of the Stockman is its serpentine design. Okay. So when you open this blade up, that serpentine design allows you to put your thumb right there, and it's a very natural feel. It just feels really good in your hand, and it's easy to use. And on the other side, when you're using the small blade for detail work, it humps up, and so you can put your finger on it like that and do fine detail work to create whatever you're trying to create with the knife. On the other side, again, it swoops down, and so you can get right down on top of the blade. So I think the pattern really has a lot to do with the popularity of these knives. And same thing with this. So very early on, I showed you some pictures before. I'll show them again. You can see that there's 5-bladed and 4-bladed premium stock knives. There were also knives like these. I'm not sure they were sow bellies, but they kind of look like it. And they have 5 blades. And so when you put, 5 blades on a stock knife, it may just look like a sow belly. Those were 3-spring knives. But again, the sow belly has that same serpentine design and allows you to get in there like that and hold it very comfortably. And again, on the other side for detail work. So I think the popularity of the Stockman has as much to do with the serpentine design as it does the three blades. At least that's my take on it. So I hope you found this informative. I hope you found it entertaining. And I really appreciate you guys for checking it out and supporting the channel. Thanks again.